Trevor Matich joins us live now over Zoom. And Trevor, again, I know you don't give out those compliments lightly. That is quite the comparison. Why did you feel so strongly about BYU's defensive performance on Friday night?
Because of how inspiring it was. I mean, they were dominating at the line of scrimmage. The defensive line and linebackers were resetting the line of scrimmage behind the offensive line because of their attacking style. They trusted each other. They didn't do something and then look around and make sure they didn't have to make up for somebody else. They just went for it and trusted the guys next to them to go for it and do the right things as well, which they did. And in the key moments, they came up with massive plays. I mean, at one point, SMU drove down to the +6. BYU's defense stopped them on 4th down. Then SMU drives down to the +20. Interception. Then BYU has a turnover. SMU ends up with the ball on the 3-yard line. Because of that aggression, SMU is called for holding, put her back to the 13-yard line, and BYU takes it away from them there. That's 3 drives down inside the 15-yard line, came away with 0 points in a game that BYU won by 3. And I tell you, I don't think there was one play like Kyle Morrell's play at Hawaii where at the goal line he jumped up over the line and grabbed the quarterback by the nameplate on the back of his jersey and pulled him back. I don't think there was a play like that in this game, but overall, the way the BYU defense performed at Hawaii was like what BYU did against SMU. In other words, inspiring.
It was incredible. This is an SMU team that had won 9 in a row at home, putting up 52 a game at home during that streak. BYU does not give up a touchdown, 5 field goals, as you mentioned, in the red zone, only 6 points allowed. 3 takeaways overall, 2 by the defense, 1 by the special teams. It was fantastic. Do you feel like the defense showed us that it can be sustainable, that that can be the calling card for this BYU football team?
Absolutely, as long as they stay healthy. And they, I think, have better depth this year than they had last year. And they will need, will be attrition. Guys will get banged up. Guys will get hurt. And the replacements need to come in at a higher level than they were able to really do last year. Certainly the front line guys, the most impressive thing to me in terms of the production of each individual player was that the defensive line had production, had disruption from not just Tyler Batty. They had disruption from multiple guys. Mangelson was magnificent in this game, others too, in addition to Tyler Batty. Because last year, offenses would zero in on Batty, they'd double team him, and nobody else really caused much trouble. This year, multiple guys are causing trouble, and that doesn't include the linebackers who were magnificent in this game. And so from a standpoint of the starting group, yes, absolutely, this is a defensive-led team, at least it is for now. And the success of this defense will be determined over the course of the entire season by the success of the depth. And I know that they have worked hard, BYU has, to develop the depth behind those starters, and I think it's going to be really interesting to watch, because if they play all year like they played against SMU, it's going to be hard to score on these guys.
ESPN College football insider and analyst Trevor Matich is with us on BYUSN for another Matich Monday. As good as the defense was, the offense on the other side for BYU certainly had its struggles, and there was a major lull through the middle part of the game, I should say, outside of some bookended critical touchdown drives in this game, Trevor. BYU's offense really ran into a wall against SMU, some of it self-inflicted. So how would you assess the overall offensive performance for BYU, and what the heck do they need to do to adjust to get better moving forward?
The first thing they need to do is get running backs healthy. When they were down to, their top 2 running backs were out. Fortunately, Miles Davis is there to be able to rotate in as well, and some other guys that were able to pick up some of the slack. But still, when the defense doesn't fear your running game, at least not to bust off big plays, then it hurts your passing attack. So that's one thing. The second thing is, don't hurt yourself. I mean, you ever hammer nails and you hit yourself on the thumbnail with a hammer because you missed the actual nail? Have you ever done that? That's a serious question.
Yes, as a father, yes, and it doesn't feel good.
Yeah, no, I've done it, and I can still see my thumbnail turn black. BYU's offense did this multiple times that led to multiple takeaways. By the SMU defense, turnovers. But it wasn't really takeaway, it was turnover. It was, for example, quarterback, Jake Retzlaff, rolls out to the right. The defense is surrounding him, and he tries to make a play anyway. Now, at that point, you need to understand that the defense won. It's a close game. Your defense is playing well. The punter is your friend. Don't take a risk. And yet, he tried to make a play. In doing so, he lost ball security. Ball got stripped out, and it was a turnover. Those kinds of things didn't happen to BYU because of great play by the SMU defense. They happened because of a decision that should not have been made, which is to say, in this moment, I don't need to take a risk with ball security so that I can get through this bunch of people and potentially lose control. And when I say that, understand what I mean. A lot of times when a guy is holding the ball high and tight, he's in traffic, he's got two hands on it, great. You can't run your fastest or make your most dynamic moves in that posture, but that ball is secure. And if you want to make a dynamic move, that ball comes away just a little bit because you're focused now on the dynamic move. That's when it can get stripped. That's what happened to Jake. That was a decision, and those decisions need to be cleaner.
Regarding the quarterback situation, you talked about Jake Retzlaff's performance there. A lot of Cougar Nation was calling for a switch. You're going into Wyoming where you hope to put up a bunch of points. What's your assessment of quarterback right now and what BYU should do moving forward?
I think the coaching staff was right to stay with Jake. The mistakes that he made were the kind of mistake that's easily correctable, because it's not something that he was trying to do that he can't. It's something that he can do. And it's easier to rein somebody in than to get them to go faster and better and stronger than they really can. And reining in those kind of moments is what Jake needed to do. Don't do a lot right now. Right now, what you need to do is protect the ball, and we'll be okay. So that's easy to correct. Also, I like what Coach Satake said about how things will happen. Bad things will happen. Mistakes will be made, and we have to give guys a chance to fight their way through it and come out the other side. Otherwise, when guys make mistakes, they're out. Well, it depends on the mistake in some ways, but it also is really good for Jake to have been able to fight his way out and engineer that last touchdown drive, field goal drive, game winner, and show that he is the quarterback that they know he is. And when I say is, it's not even can be, because we've seen in the last two games how he has been such a baller. He's been able to fit that ball into tight windows. He's been able to make plays on the move. He's been just a lightning rod in a positive way for this offense, but for some mistakes that should be easily correctable. So I think the coaches did the right thing by staying with him, and he paid off that confidence with that game-winning field goal drive.
Trevor Matich is on BYU Sports Nation. Well, now Jake Retzlaff and BYU head to Laramie, Wyoming to take on an 0-2 Cowboys squad that looks, in a word, bad. They were embarrassed by Arizona State, lost at home to Idaho for the first time in 100 years, so the Vandals go on the road and win. What do you expect from BYU, and specifically the offense, when they end up in Laramie this weekend?
Clean. I want to see clean play. And from the defense as well. The defense did play cleanly almost the entire game, a couple of exceptions, but overall they were great. But when I say clean as it applies to the offense, that means block the right guy, secure the football, make sound decisions, know when you have to take a risk and when you don't, and when you should, and limit penalties. This is the way BYU is going to win games or to be in games when they get into Big 12 play. Because the Big 12 is a conference that has a lot of talent and a lot of depth in those teams. You mentioned Arizona State. A lot of people thought Arizona State was going to be just plain awful this year, but they've started out hot. I mean, they look really, really good. Arizona is really good. I mean, you look at teams in the Big 12 that BYU will have to defeat. The way that they'll defeat them is by first playing in a more disciplined fashion. Alignment, assignment, technique, ball security, penalties. These are the things that I want to see against Wyoming. So that Arizona State team that blew out Wyoming, probably a lot better than people thought. Idaho only lost to 10 points at Oregon.
Yeah.
So both of those teams are actually pretty good. I'm not sure that Wyoming is that bad yet. So if I'm BYU, I'm treating this like the Super Bowl, and I'm going in thinking this is going to be a fight to the finish and play that fight cleanly.
Well, that's a fun thought because I don't agree, but that's okay. I think Wyoming stinks, Trevor. But I do want to ask you about any fun memories playing against the Cowboys or in Laramie.
Yeah, my freshman year, Mark Wilson's the quarterback. We go up to Laramie, and it's a blizzard. The game's on ABC. It was snowing so hard that I couldn't see the Wyoming team on the other sideline. As we were coming out of the locker room, everybody had their helmet on but me, and I'm thinking, well, why do you have your helmet on? We're just going out to the sideline. And one of the veterans said, put your helmet on. I said, why? He said, just put it on. And when I went out with them, things started pinging off my helmet because it was snowing so hard that the only people left in the stands were the ones that were lubricated to the degree that they didn't have shirts on anyway. And so that was my first, and I took that as passion from the fans. So I took that as a positive thing. But then Mark Wilson set a couple of NCAA records on ABC in that snow game. And that was my first memory of Laramie.
Wow, snowballs to the helmets.
And I literally was talking to someone this morning that said, oh, yeah, players from the early 2000s told me that some Wyoming fans would have urine and water balloons and chuck that at us as we came out of the locker room. So you never know what you're going to get in Laramie.
Thank goodness it was all frozen water balloons, so we were safe.
Trevor Matich is on ESPN.
It happens.
All right, let's talk about the Football Power Index, which had BYU at 4.5 wins when the season began. Now that the Cougars have defeated Southern Illinois and won a game that the FPI was giving the Cougars a 21% chance of winning and beating SMU, that number has climbed to an average of 6.7 wins projected for BYU. So, Trevor, have your expectations shifted like the FPI after 2 games for BYU?
Yes, to a degree. I thought that this game against SMU, if BYU was able to pull that off, would be a quality win because that SMU team is legit. I mean, their defense is one of the better defenses in the ACC. Their offense beefed up its offensive line. They brought in running backs from Miami. They had experience at quarterback. I mean, this was a legitimate team, SMU. And now BYU goes on the road there. And I knew to beat them, BYU would have to play cleanly. And BYU's offense didn't play cleanly. But BYU's defense forced even worse from the SMU offense. So it balanced out. But given the fact that they were able to go out there and not play their best game on one side of the ball and still pull out the victory, tells me that BYU does have a good chance, or a better chance than a lot of people thought, to get to 6 or more. And I thought that 6 was a good benchmark for BYU this year. 6 would be a really good season in their second year in the Big 12. Now it looks a lot more likely that they could get there or even surpass it.
Let's talk about Cougars in the NFL as we wrap up. Certainly Ryan Rico made some headlines with the longest punt in Bengals history of 80 yards, 65.4 yards per punt in minimum 4 as an NFL single-game record. It was his first game in the NFL, yet you have Kingsley Suamataia starting for the Chiefs. You got Fred Warner tonight on Monday Night Football. What has impressed you so far about the Cougars in the NFL in Week 1?
The way they represent BYU. I mean, they play the game right. They respect the game of football. And you're either really a talented player or you're a less talented player. You can't really control that. What you can control is how hard you work. And your teammates will see you for your humanity, your work ethic, and your quality as a teammate for them, even more than whether or not you're super talented, because there's talented guys all over the league. You need the rest of those guys. And BYU has those kinds of guys, the ones that are quality guys and guys that are top talents as well. And they represent football. They represent BYU. I just want to know if Rico's record that he broke at Cincinnati in punting was Lee Johnson's record. I would like to know that, because Lee Johnson can kick the ball completely out of the stadium.
Well, to your point, Lee had a 76-yard punt for the Bengals, so we will get the crack research team on that here at BYUSN and confirm that. Trevor, we wish you well. We appreciate the time as always, and you don't have to wear your helmet this weekend when BYU plays Wyoming, but if you do want to slip it on, no, we would not fault you at all.
I appreciate that. Better safe than sorry, especially considering what you just told me that was so disturbing.
I want to see it on SportsCenter.
Thanks, Trevor.
All right.